What I don't agree with what Trev said is that, we don't know what the solution is, when honestly it's really a simple solution, that if you do not want children, then maybe people should not be having sex. And I know that's crazy to say, right? We're in this overly sexualized society where sex is seen as a norm, but when you really look at the implications of sex and what it does to your mind, your physiology, how you think, how you interact with other people and partners in the future for both men and women, then we probably shouldn't be doing it at all if you're not prepared to go ahead and take on that responsibility.
Y'all's eyes does that mean to you? Like, from y'all's experience, what's your connection to or experience with reproductive justice, and what does that actually mean to you? Anybody should kick in.
As a father, you fall deeply in love with parenting, right? And what that means, and understanding the responsibility that it takes. But you also learn, as a father, the mother ends up doing so much more than what you can offer sometimes, and it's just facts. You don't have breasts to feed this baby. You don't have the kind of just natural intellect to kind of carry things. That's why a lot of fathers just say, here you go, I don't know what to do, right? So I think, for one, it's just accepting that, understanding that you are there to help produce and provide, but then there's gonna be so much more that you can't, provide. And so just trying to be a support system around whatever your spouse or your girlfriend at the time is choosing to do with their body. It's something that I've learned over the years, personal experiences from having to make that decision to have an abortion, with your girlfriend at a young age, to end up feeling like that you didn't have a say-so in it, right? And then understanding as a man where you don't. Once you decide to go into that position and you put your seed into this woman, now that's her decision where to go. You can't say, well, I don't want no baby, or you can't have no. You should have thought about that before you saw so teaching my son that, right, and understanding that you have a decision very early on in the process, but later on you don't. And if you decide to go through with it, then you need to be ready to support and provide and do the things that you need to do. So that's kind of been my learning curve over the situation. And then just feeling horrible for, as we was talking off camera, about all the women who've lost their lives in this situation and not being able to have the medicine that they need. And not only around, reproduction and having babies, but even down to like fibroids, right? My wife struggles with that, and Black women not having the information that they need to figure out how to get rid of the fibroids and all those type of things. So whatever we can do to just kind of lean in and learn and listen, that's what I've been like. Same thing, somebody would have asked me a couple years ago, I said, I guess my perspective may have been different, but now we're in a time where you really just want to have a different understanding. I teach my son that, and then also my daughter, what decision she has to make before she lays down with somebody, and how it can change your life, right?
So, we had this discussion all the time as far as, men often say that, once it happens, then they don't have a choice, that it's her decision. So how do you guys feel about what he just said, and men not having choices, and men being able to take ownership when it comes to the decision that they make when it comes to having a child or getting somebody pregnant?
So I sort of agree in a way where there's really no backsies in that situation, because I mean, at that point, you already gave it away, and it's in the mother's womb at that point. So it is in her body. So I get that part of it. Whereas any action that you take can have a positive or negative impact on the woman's body and her reproductive system. And some of those situations are extremely intrusive. It puts you in danger for later on when you want to have children. So, and it just might not be their belief. Maybe they don't believe in deleting, right? That just might not be a thing. So, and there's going to be a lot. There's going to be hormonal changes and things that the woman goes through. So, I always tell men, listen, your time is beforehand. There's no backsies. You have a choice. If somebody crab leg you, or put a hole in your joint or something, then maybe you should be able to take some type of litigation against her. But if you were cooperative, it was a mutual decision for you to do that, you kind of passed the baton at that point. So understanding everything that the female does have to go through, then I get that point of it. I think that we need to come up with some type of a solution though to handle the financial side of it separate from that. Whereas either you agree beforehand or no, because I do think that there is a disparity with how women are able to eject financially or just responsibility as a whole, meaning no questions asked. If you want, if Brenda's got a baby, she could just drop them off at the fire department or many other places to support, and there is no consequence whatsoever. They can just drop them off. All right, see ya. The father does not have that choice if he changes his mind. So I think that we have to do something differently. Either neither party could go away from the responsibility, or both. But I don't think that part of it should be lopsided. I'll let it there.
I agree with a lot of things that he stated. I do think, unfortunately, that once the deed is done and the seed is in the woman's body, it is ultimately her decision on whether or not she would like to carry that child or not. I do think after that decision is made, it can be, or it can seem like it's lopsided, especially with more men being on child support than women and having to take care of children that they might not have necessarily wanted. What I don't agree with what Trev said is that, we don't know what the solution is, when honestly it's really a simple solution, that if you do not want children, then maybe people should not be having sex. And I know that's crazy to say, right? We're in this overly sexualized society where sex is seen as a norm, but when you really look at the implications of sex and what it does to your mind, your physiology, how you think, how you interact with other people and partners in the future for both men and women, then we probably shouldn't be doing it at all if you're not prepared to go ahead and take on that responsibility. And unfortunately, that more so leans on men, especially since men are usually the ones that are like, I don't want this child, I don't want this responsibility, I'm not ready for that. These are all things we have to think about before we actually start the action and decide to be irresponsible and have sex without contraceptive, without a condom, with, no protection, because we're in the moment and having fun. We never tend to think about what the repercussions of our actions are. And then once you have to deal with them, that's when people decide they want to run. The other thing I did want to comment on is, yes, women can decide to give up their child, but I also feel like men have that decision as well. Men leave all the time and decide not to take care of their child. Some men, will report they have no income, so they don't necessarily get held down with child support. There are women that don't even decide to go that route because they would rather just deal with it themselves. But when we look at the bigger picture, who does that really help, right? Because now we have another child that's either in the system and we know the system is trash, or we have another child who has no father, so they're going to have so many different struggles that they will have to navigate through and hopefully grow out of as they get older. So I think as a culture altogether, we have to start teaching our children to be safe, to practice not engaging, especially when they're not ready and they know they're not responsible for that responsibility.
Can I respond to Tyler real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So Todd, the first thing I mentioned was that, I always encourage men to practice safely, right? In a perfect world, we could say abstinence, but we know these dudes is horny as hell. It's not happening. So, I would love to address it that way, but that's just not realistic. And as far as men being able to abandon it, they can't do that like women can, because women will not have to pay child support. Women will not lose their passport. Women will not get their license taken away from them. So those are all things that you can say they can abandon from the time, but they will absolutely be held accountable. It will be enforced. You will literally be on probation. That's the department that handles it, right? So what I'm saying is that women can completely have their responsibilities relinquished while men can't. So it's absolutely lopsided as far as the enforcement is concerned.
Real quick, so that I don't think what Trev said was necessarily true, I think it seems true, right? But if a father did have custody of his child and the woman didn't want any parts, he could do the exact same course of action. That's the only reason that I wanted to say that. That's all.
All right. Go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, I chalk it up as one of those double standards. Here's the thing: when people engage in the Amherst Congress, I would like to think that they would be in lockstep in their decision making. You know, no matter what brought you to the bedroom, once you engage in that, it's pretty serious. It's a heavy operation to engage in. So whatever decisions made to be protected, unprotected, to terminate or to keep and raise, whatever the case is, it should be lockstep, and agreed upon from beginning to end. Unfortunately, it isn't. There are times where at some point someone will have a change of mind, someone will have a change of heart, and I think that's kind of where it all goes wrong. I mean, I don't know if this ever happens, but I'm sure there are times where a man is, I want to keep the child upon discovery that one is in the oven, and she's like, get out of here. So, what happens then? And I don't promote casual, unprotected sex. That's not what I'm saying here. I'm just saying I know it happens, right? It's inevitable. I just wish people, treated it more seriously. At least had integrity of they're just being in lockstep with one another. If you can't do that, then you don't even need to get in bed with these people, because this is life changing stuff.
I'm really glad you said that, Mont, because it happens to women all the time if the father has custody and chooses to put their woman on child support. I've seen it firsthand. And no, she doesn't have a passport. She can't even leave the state. All of that stuff. Like, yes, all of that happens to women. If men choose to get custody of their children, which I encourage. However, when I watched the roundtable, my heart was smiling because finally a man finally said it's both people's responsibility. Like, both of you are laying down. The woman cannot get pregnant without that man giving her his life force. So unless you choose to release into that woman, she can't have your baby. Like, it's not a possibility. So, but once you do, you lose all control of that. If you choose to not do that, because it's easy. You know when it's coming, just don't do it. Put protection on, whatever the case may be. Both of you have a responsibility. Both of you have precautions that you can take. It's not just on the woman to close her legs. She deserves pleasure as well. But pleasure does not mean consent to have a baby. And if you don't want it, then you shouldn't do the thing that provides that woman the thing that she needs to have a baby. So I thought that was very fair, because I think that it is very fair to hold both people accountable. It is not just on the woman. It's not her responsibility. It's both people. So I was happy.